Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, and also good morning out there in Canada and in the US. Hopefully, you guys are having a great week and also a great weekend wherever you are. And this evening is a very special treat for me and also fans of Silent Hill in general because I have Mr. Max Derrat all the way
Hey,
from Canada. Just a little bit of introduction also. He might continue what I'm going to say about himself, but I've been a big fan of Max ever since 2018. Been looking for content regarding Metal Gear and Silent Hill. So I think a step up on watching your video regarding decode a call in Metal Gear, and that's one of the best videos I've seen in YouTube, and also a lot of talk regarding Silent Hill lore. So who is Max? Max is a YouTuber, a gamer, and also an educator, explainer of difficult but interesting concepts that spans from games, music, and also movie analysis. But besides those, Max, is there anything else you could say about yourself? Tell about yourself.
uh, I love Halo,
Infinite.
mm.
Yep.
and I
Mm.
love tea, which is what I'm drinking right now. And Halo, uh, I've when the Game Awards were playing last night, I got so
Uh-huh.
bored that I just decided to put Halo on and just have Halo on one screen, Game Awards on the other, and just hope that, beyond all hope, that Silent Hill would get reannounced. Even though I still believe that it will get reannounced,
Mm.
given the information that we have, uh, still a bit disappointed. But at least I had Halo to numb the pain.
Mm. But
Mhm.
we also do have the second Alan Wake game,
That is
I think.
true. Yep, that
Hmm.
was my number one announcement of last night. I'm absolutely delighted, and to know that it's going to be more of a survival horror game more than an action game that soothes my it fills the Silent Hole shaped heart
Yeah,
in my aorta. Yeah.
yeah. Who doesn't really miss the good old days of Silent Hill, especially one, two, and three?
Mm,
To be honest with you, I haven't played anything after Shattered Memories.
hmm.
I didn't play Homecoming. I didn't play. What's this other one? I forgot it.
Downpour.
Uh, Downpour. Yeah, I only
Hmm.
watched the gameplays of some YouTubers on Downpour. Seems to be good on paper, but they just keep on laughing when they play Downpour for some reason. And yeah, so
There's a reason.
there's a reason why. Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
And let me just ask you, Max. Even though I know the answer, what did you really enjoy about Silent Hill, and why do you consider it as probably one of the best game franchise or horror games of all time?
Well, to answer that question, yeah, I sort of have to consider why the vast majority of people who have played a plethora of horror games consider it to be one of the greatest. 20 years, more than 20 years after the release of the original game, if you talk to anybody who are fans of the survival horror genre in regards to video games, you ask them, what are your top five favorite horror games? And 90% of the time, I would say that Silent Hill's on them. So you have to ask
Mm.
yourself, what is it about it? Well, in my researches into the game, I surmised that it's because it uses archetypal images that get to the root of the human experience, that evoke images that lie deep within our unconscious minds and puts them at the forefront. Sort of like in a similar way that Fatal Frame does, where it sort of takes these really horrifying images that you can only really experience in a nightmare and forcing you to come face to face with them. That's
Mm.
what Silent Hill is. And the way that it does that, it goes into the history of world religions, which psychoanalysis like Rogers and Alfred Adler and Jung, obviously, and Freud, they say is a repository for uh, images that originate from the depths of our unconscious. So, for example, why is Pyramid Head so scary? Like,
Mhm.
why does he sort of live on in the collective unconscious of people's minds 20 years after his initial appearance in Silent Hill 2? Well, I surmise it's because that he, by being an overtly masculine, violent, having his head covered, something about that image evokes um, the deepest, darkest part of our minds. And you see how well that image works in other forms of fiction. So, have you ever played The Evil Within?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
played Evil Within. Mhm.
Yeah. So, there's the character, the Keeper, which
Yep,
I would be willing to bet money was directly inspired
inspired.
by Pyramid Head.
Pyramid.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And because Silent Hill so effectively personifies those dark aspects of our minds, be it our personal minds or the collective mind of the human species, uh, inside one game, people just keep coming back to it. People are just fascinated with it. That's why I think my Silent Hill lore series, my Silent Hill mythology was so popular. It's because people identify so much with the monsters and concepts that are evoked in Silent Hill because they were found by the psychoanalysts and world religions over the last thousands of years, and they were condensed within these games. And people, as I say that, if you haven't watched my series, maybe like, oh, come on, Max. There's no way they did all these things and uh, made it into this game because I played Silent Hill and I don't remember any of this. Well, hopefully, this conversation today will help prove you wrong. You'll
Mhm.
see just how you'll understand the underlying brilliance of Silent Hill. I know that was a lot to take in, and it's still pretty early over here, so I'm just trying to get my mental faculties in place. But hopefully, things will make a little bit more sense as we go along.
Oh yeah, definitely. Uh, I was also researching a lot about Silent Hill before my invitation to you, or at least trying to relive those aspects, the feeling that I have when I played Silent Hill 2. Because out of all the Silent Hill games, I think the most enjoyable for me was 2, and I think you would agree with that one as well.
Yes.
Hmm. And most of your lore videos also circle around 2. What is it with 2 that you also enjoy that much?
Um, it's a good question. I suppose there's a lot more stuff that's sort of going on under the surface in regards to Silent Hill 1 in terms of like if you watch my videos on the red squares, for
Mm.
example, you'll
Yep.
understand that some of the stuff that's going on in Silent Hill 1 deals more so with the religious,
Yes.
alchemical concepts, occult concepts, whereas with Silent Hill 2, it's a lot more of a personal story. It doesn't really deal so much with that. It's more about just delving into one man's psychology. I think my friend Reinstall Paul put it very well when he said that Silent Hill 1 is more technical, whereas Silent Hill 2 is more intuitive. And
Hmm.
because people are drawn towards what's simple uh, more than what's complicated, obviously, Silent Hill 2 just managed to do more with a lot less, and probably the best that any other survival horror game did, uh, like that I can think of. So I think that's why.
Yeah. For me, I think the way that they have written the story for Silent Hill 2 is very personal, as you said, and knowing that anyone could actually be James, anyone could be in that position doing the
Mm.
same thing that he did, that gives it more weight as a player. You're trying to relate to the main character, though a lot of the stuff there are outlandish, given that it is a game.
Mm.
But
What you mean, like killing your wife?
Yeah, and also the entire thing with Maria and
Mhm.
all of those stuff that is being conjured by Silent Hill, obviously. But let me also ask you regarding Maria, because this has been bothering me for a while when
Yeah.
looking at both Mary and Maria. So, are they actually the same person? Is it just James's psyche being played and toyed around by Silent Hill? That okay, so you have a dead wife. Let me just conjure up another different version of her here, probably on your deepest, darkest secrets of what you really like on a woman for a woman, or is it actually the other side of Mary?
Okay. So I think the answer to that question uh, lies in that one scene when Maria and James are in the prison, and James asks her, "Aren't you Maria?" And then
Mm,
what does she say? She says, "I'm not your Mary."
Mary.
And then he says, "Then you're Maria." And then she says, "I am if you want me to be."
Hmm.
So she's not really definitive on whether she's Mary or Maria. Right. And I think I have a theory as to why that is.
Okay.
I have yet to have anybody poke any holes in this theory. I've had people offer decent criticisms in regards to other stuff that I brought up, but again, I'd be willing to bet money that this is true.
Hmm.
So, as I was just saying in regards to Pyramid Head and why he's so scary, it's because he represents a dark part that lies not just within one person's mind, but everybody's mind. The same thing holds true for Maria. And that dark part is something that Carl Jung, the famous Swiss psychoanalyst, would refer to as an archetype. Maria represents the archetype of the great feminine that resides in the psyche of all human beings. She represents the positive and the negative. The positive, I would imagine, would probably be Mary, and then the negative wouldn't necessarily be Maria, but it would be like the boss that we fight at the very end of Silent Hill 2, the one that Mary or Maria transforms into.
Hmm.
Maria is sort of like coming closer to that negative aspect. Uh, so I think that the Mary and the Maria that we encounter throughout Silent Hill 2 are sort of variations of that fundamental underlying archetype. And that archetype comes closer to proper fruition, closer to the end of the game, once you see her take on the demeanor of the Virgin Mary, which for a lot of people, especially Christians, is the highest representation of the ideal feminine because she gave birth to the Messiah, right? And she was a virgin, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think there was one or two things that I wanted to say there, but they sort of slipped my mind. I think I gave if it comes back to my mind, I'll say it, but I think
Yeah.
that sort of answers the question. Oh yeah, and so the reason why she shows up is because the fundamental horror hook of the Silent Hill games is that the products of one's unconscious mind come to life in Silent Hill. While the archetypes reside in the unconscious mind of not just the personal unconscious, but the collective unconscious.
Mm.
And seeing that the great archetype of the great feminine resides in both personal and collective, she appears in Silent Hill as Maria, Mary, and the Virgin Mary at the end. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, cool.
It does make sense, but it is a very technical explanation.
Hmm.
Most people will be able to understand that, but I would suggest those who will be watching this afterwards just try to play the game again and also run through Max's explanation because it's going to be evident what he's explaining. But going back to that also, in Born from a Wish, it seems like she's already there.
Yeah.
What do you think is the connection between her and also Silent Hill? Because the way that I see Born from a Wish when I played it. It's like, was was she actually conjured there,
Hmm.
or is she a different entity all in all? Because it seems like to me, I'm sorry, it seems like to me that she has her own journey into Silent Hill when you play Born from a Wish.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what do you think would be Maria's journey then?
Okay, so if you want a
Mary,
more
sorry, Mary, Mary. Ah, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Maria, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'll give you the quick answer. If you guys want the long answer, you can go to my YouTube channel and look up a video called "Who Wrote the Messages:
Mm,
Silent Hill Mythology."
yeah.
I'll respond though in shorter form here. So in that video, I sort of liken Maria's existence to the existence of Alan Wake slash Thomas Zane in Alan Wake.
Mhm.
Alan Wake 2 got announced at the Video Game Awards last night. I'm very happy. Um, and uh, depending on who you talk to when you play Alan Wake, it's either Thomas Zane, who was the guy who came before, or Alan Wake, that was the guy that came before.
Mm,
And then either Thomas Zane or Alan Wake wrote the other person into existence. So, what does a writer do? Alan Wake is a writer, right? Alan Wake, he comes up with ideas in his mind and he writes them into existence. That's the cool thing about that game.
mm,
Same sort of principle applies in Silent Hill. The products of your mind come to life. Um, in Silent Hill, it seems to me that the the character of Maria was created by the deepest, darkest part of James's psyche. Even though he didn't have to write her into existence, just his wish for her, get it, born from a wish,
mm,
brought her to life within Silent Hill in the same way that, uh, yeah, a whole bunch of stuff came to life in the Dark Place in Alan Wake. And so the idea of birthing a conscious entity from your own mind applies in both games. Alan Wake gave birth to Thomas Zane, or vice versa, and
mhm.
in Silent Hill, James gave birth to Maria. So that's so it seems like just because she's a conscious being that's capable of her own autonomy and going about her own journey, that doesn't nullify my previous theories, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
By
Yeah.
the way,
It's
hi to Edgy Weeb. Thanks for saying you're a big
yeah.
fan. I'm glad that you enjoy my videos, man.
Actually, you have a lot of fans here in Manila, in the Philippines. A couple of friends of mine were asking what time is this one, so I did
Hey.
send them some invites, and they also wanted to meet you because they're avid gamers of Silent Hill. But the problem is they're also playing Silent Hill right now, so tough luck to them. But yeah, and
I see where your priorities lie, and they and they lie in the right place. Yes, to definitely
yeah,
play Silent Hill. That's more important.
yeah,
I'm being
but
sincere when I say that, by the way.
and also Max, when you look at the story of Silent Hill 2, a lot of people interpret it as also James's sexual frustration after the death of Maria
Yeah,
or Mary. Sorry, Mary. Do you think this is the case based on his psyche or no?
well, of course.
Hmm.
I
And
mean,
that
it seems self evident to me, given all the
mm,
sexual imagery that you see in that game.
mm, and it's being used by Silent Hill against him. So you're
Or
sorry.
is it James unconsciously bringing this torment upon himself? I'm still not entirely certain that Silent Hill itself is a conscious entity. It just seems more like a tool that could be
Mhm.
wielded by whoever occupies that space. But sorry, that's more of a very technical, nerdy thing on my part.
Yeah, it would actually fall to people who actually have experienced the games itself, and
Mm,
that leads me to another question regarding the other world concept of the other world. I
yeah.
think you already talked about this one in some of your videos, but I'd like to hear it from you personally.
Okay.
And what when talking about the other world, it seems like Silent Hill is again conjuring up your deepest fears and also your sins. And we've seen it from 1 to 3, or at least from 1 to 3. They have different teams, not to mention other entities or other players, sorry, characters within the game might also have a different version of their Silent Hill, or sorry, different version of their other world. In Harry Mason's part, we see it like something rotting, I believe. Also kind of reddish. When it comes to James, it's a bit rusty and old, like it's already collapsing. And when it comes to Heather Mason or Cheryl or
Yeah.
whatever on Silent Hill 3, it's totally like a hell world full of blood and guts.
Hmm.
What do you think is the reason for this one?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying before. There are two sides
Mm,
of the unconscious mind, which is what I believe the other world represents. It's just another name for the same basic concept. There's the
mm,
personal and there's the collective. The collective unconscious, as the aforementioned psychoanalysts interpreted it, is sort of this repository for psychic images
mm,
that all human beings are connected to. And those images, they personalize themselves when they come to you. So when you enter Silent Hill, it's like you're entering the collective unconscious. But the way you experience the collective unconscious uh, is that the images inside the collective unconscious, they sort of mold themselves to you. And they do that by going through to the personal unconscious and personalizing the other worlds to your experience. It's again, it's very technical and it takes a lot of time. Unless you watch my videos where I break it down very carefully, it takes a
mm.
lot of years of studying psychoanalysis to be able to
Research.
wrap your head around this. But yeah, that's the reason why everything seems very personal. And then sometimes, if you happen to encounter another character, sometimes those personal contents will cross over with each other, but the way that you perceive them won't necessarily be the same way that other people perceive them. And you see this particularly with Angela and James in
Angela,
Silent
yep.
Hill 2, in two circumstances. One, when, well, actually, no, sorry, just one circumstance off the top of my head. When you see the monster known as the Abstract Daddy,
Abstract
it's
Daddy.
yeah
Yeah.
in the room where you have all those cylinders that are coming in and out of the walls.
Mhm.
Uh, I imagine that what Angela sees is very different from what James sees, because James, he doesn't have any understanding of what happened to Angela with her and her dad. So, but that entity is still there, and James has to uh, make sense of it in the only the way that he can. So, what you
Mm.
see is that twisted form. Whereas I imagine if you were seeing it through Angela's eyes, it would be something more akin to just something looking like her dad, right? So it's just the way that um, your personal mind interprets a decaying world around you. Yeah, so that's the best explanation I can sort of offer off the top of my head.
Yeah, because it does take a lot of research and also explanation when going through the other world. And how about Laura though in Silent Hill 2? Laura doesn't
Mm,
seem to be affected by all of this, and people, I think, including yourself, would say that since Laura is still pretty much innocent and also very young, she doesn't seem to have any sins that Silent Hill would be able to convert into another world. But do you think that will be the case with her though, or is it just Silent is a bit selective of what they want to pull out from people's memories or psyche?
I sort of struggle with who Laura is. I often wonder whether or not she's actually a real person. Because there's one thing that she says when the second time that James encounters her that I still don't really know what to make of. Remember when she's sitting on top of that concrete wall? James comes over to her and he says, "What's a little girl doing like you doing around here anyway?" And then what does she say? Do you remember what she says?
Yeah, kind of hazy, but
Yeah,
can you refresh my memory on that one?
yeah. She says, "Huh? Are you blind or something?" So it's almost like the way that James is perceiving her, that's not maybe necessarily who she is,
Hmm.
right? So maybe she's not a little
I-
girl.
Maybe it's someone else. Maybe.
Maybe, I suppose, based on the way that she acts, she sort of acts as a personification of one's conscience. Because you see how she acts when she's around Eddie, for example. What does she do?
She hates
Tells
Eddie. Yeah.
Yeah, she hates Eddie. She tells him the truth, and she does it in a very annoying. She does it in the way where it's very annoying because she's like, yeah, she's being really cruel about it, but she's also right, and that's the worst kind of annoying, right?
Mm.
And in regards to James, she she acts sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes she serves that function with James, like when James tells Laura that he killed Mary, what does she do? She pounds the crap out of him, or at least tries to.
Yeah.
Right. So I wonder if Laura, was sort of a manifestation of Silent Hill, or if she actually was a real person. I think the game wonderfully leaves that open to interpretation.
Yeah, because there's nothing really much to go with as far as
Yeah.
characters concerned, except for the encounters that you have with her in Silent Hill 2. Um, Question also for Silent Hill 1 with
Mhm.
Cheryl Mason. Uh, I can't remember this part, but why do you think Cheryl was taken by Silent Hill?
Why do I think Cheryl was taken?
Was
What do you
taken,
mean?
yeah. Because she was chosen, right? In Silent Hill 1. Am I or am I
Well,
mixing things again?
Cheryl was the light half of Alessa's soul,
Yeah.
right? And Alessa, in order to try and bring an end to the torment that her mother and the Order of Sound Hill brought upon her by,
Mm,
immolating her and all that, she sent that part of her soul out in the hopes that it could take on its own form, and then she could use that form
mm.
uh, to reunite with herself and hopefully finally bring about her death, uh, which, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's fine.
Um,
Yeah. Her own death.
yeah, for Alessa to finally die, because that's what she
Mm,
ultimately wanted to do, was she wanted to die. So Cheryl wasn't chosen. Her birth was the result of, she was a product of Alessa's soul. That's what her entire reason for being was. She
mm.
wasn't chosen. She was more or less just born that way. You know,
Oh,
it's
with
kind of like how Jesus wasn't chosen. He was just sort of born to be the Messiah. Cheryl was born to return to Alessa.
mm, all right. I was also struggling to piece the puzzle regarding her and Silent Hill Origins. You remember the opening part? I think that was Alessa. Am I right?
Yeah.
In Origins, yeah. So is do you think at that point Shell was already alive or not yet?
No, Cheryl, uh, you see Cheryl at the very end of Silent Hill
Yeah, inside the
Origins.
Origins, but during that time, so she still wasn't that involved with Alessa yet. Sorry
No, no.
about this one, man. It's been a very long time since I last played
Hey,
one.
it's okay, man. We're
Yeah,
just talking. It's all good.
yeah, and I'm trying to also collate some of my the train of thought that I have in one since my friends are already playing it right now. Um. Yeah. So I really love to. For some reason, I like
Mm,
to ask more questions regarding two, but let's try to go ahead and ask something about four. Have you finished four before or not yet?
yes.
And it's actually one of the games that I didn't finish. I just started a few minutes playing for it and it immediately um took off and assuming that this doesn't feel right for a Silent Hill game. It
Yeah.
doesn't even look like Silent Hill to me when I played it, except for the room. The room itself, it has a very good concept,
Mhm.
and it's very scary at some point in the game. But why do you also think people don't really appreciate Silent 4 that much as compared to the first three?
Um, that's a good question. I, a lot of there are people that are huge Silent Hill 4 defenders. So
Yeah,
I,
there are
yeah,
sometimes very aggressively as well.
yeah, and it sort of pisses them off when I tell them that I'm not a fan of Silent Hill 4, unfortunately. Like I think it like you said, I think it does have some really good ideas. I think the idea of the first person being in the room itself is really cool. I think for a PS2 title, it's gorgeous looking. I
Yes,
think
it is.
some of the concepts that are in that game are really interesting, like the idea of the 21 Sacraments, bringing it back to
Mm.
Walter Sullivan. That whole thing that you can learn about in Silent Hill 2. But I just found that the way that game is structured and the story that they were trying to tell, the pacing of it is very much a slog. It wasn't
Yeah, it
matched up
is.
well. Yeah, you're not really pulled along while you're doing it. It's just after the first hour or two, you sort of start to understand everything that you're going to see for the rest of the game,
Hmm.
and then you're just sort of playing it just to complete it. And that's sort of how I felt when I was playing it. It doesn't I never really felt that sense of dread when I was playing it. A lot of the times when I died, it didn't really seem fair. Like when you're on those huge escalators and trying to
Yes,
fight those dudes, that's yeah, it's not it's
it's a
not
big turn
programmed
off,
well.
man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's why.
Mm.
It doesn't seem to borrow from a lot of the same archetypal ideas that made the first three Silent Hill games so great. It borrows from some, but not a lot. And I think that was sort of the foretelling of the end because soon after that, even though Silent Hill Origins was pretty good, uh, yeah, after that, we obviously got Homecoming, and look how that turned out.
Homecoming is also a bit of a trash game as well, I think.
Mm.
But compared to four, at least it still tries to stick with the whole theme of Silent Hill
Hey man,
as compared
like
to four.
the Homecoming to Silent Hill 4, Silent Hill 4 looks like the Magna Carta in comparison.
Yeah. And also one thing I didn't get about four, I think you probably know this as well. It seems like they created a concept of the game, and then mid production they're trying to decide what the name is.
Mm,
After that, maybe we could put here like a different name, give it a different identity. But the problem is, will it sell? Because back at the time, I think this was actually one of um, the decades where horror games were at its peak,
yeah.
and Silent Hill was on a roll. And when I think they decided to just place the name Silent Hill there in order for it to sell,
Well,
because
it's interesting you say that because I've heard two different stories in regards to Silent Hill 4's production. I've heard one story say that it wasn't originally supposed to be a Silent Hill game. It was going to be just an entirely different concept. Hence why you have those parts at the
ghosts and
beginning of the
everything.
game where sorry.
They have ghosts and everything, which is not inclined when you play one and one, two, three. There's no ghosts whatsoever in one, two, three, as far as I could remember.
Well, I suppose it depends on your definition of ghosts.
Mm.
But anyways, yeah, there's obviously the whole concept of the room that's very foreign to the first three Silent Hill games, and a lot of people thought that maybe they were trying to do something else, but then Konami told them to turn it into a Silent Hill game just so it would sell better, like you said. But then I read other reports saying, nope, Silent Hill 4 from the very beginning, it was intended to be a Silent Hill game. So I gotta plead ignorance here. I honestly don't know what the deal is.
Mm.
I tend to believe, I think I heard from, I read a developer say that it was originally just supposed to be a Silent Hill game all the way since the beginning, but I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me if you guys are listening to this.
Yeah, I think we're just speculating on the fact because they didn't really disclose the idea on what really happened there, or at least
Yeah.
officially. But it does feel like a different game. And the I think you already played PT at this point in time. Did you feel also the same way, or at least that part within the apartment on the room? Does it
Hmm.
give you some sort of PT vibe there?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it not just the fact that it's first person, the fact that it's in an enclosed space and just
Mm.
trying to see
And it
how much you can.
evolves.
Hmm?
It evolves. The entire room
Yes.
evolves to a different thing, and
Yeah.
um, that's actually one of the scariest parts of Silent Hill 4, the room itself, because it
Hmm.
seems like you don't have any weapons to fight these entities coming in and out of the room. Only, I think you only have candles, as far as I could remember,
Hmm.
and you need to collect them inside of the game proper. Which is, you also have different uses of the candles, like healing, as far as I could remember.
Yeah. I think the whole concept behind the room
Mm,
was that they wanted to see how much horror you can uh, extract from a very small enclosed space. Uh, just to sort of communicate the idea that no matter where you go, even if it's in a place where you deem to be the safest place, you still aren't safe from the products of your own mind.
mm,
And in that respect, I think that Silent Hill 4 was successful. And to obviously, we saw how much people love PT. It's just unfortunately, in regards to Silent Hill 4, that part of the game was combined with a whole bunch of other stuff that turned out to be a slog. So maybe I suppose the people that really love Silent Hill 4, they just sort of enamored with those scenes where you are just alone, first person in the apartment, and the stuff in between doesn't really bother them as much as it does you and
mm.
me.
Yeah, it really doesn't. I think it also comes with preference. People
Yeah,
playing the games
absolutely.
as well. Oh yeah, and I also find Shattered Memories pretty cool game. Not sure what your opinion regarding Shattered Memories is. It's like a total reimagining of one
Honestly, dude, I never really played it. I think I went through it like a video of somebody
once.
playing it once, and I thought this is okay, but I
It's
honestly I think
okay.
I would rather go back and play Silent
The
Hill 1.
original one. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like another wasted concept, just like with I think with the other American based productions that handle Silent Hill, they all have wasted concepts because it seems like they don't know what to do with Silent Hill
Hmm.
until Hideo Kojima produced PT. It's like they don't have any direction. So I just like to ask also, since you dive into Carl Jung's and how science is actually highly influenced by Carl Jung's concepts.
Hmm.
Could you tell us more about some of the other concepts that Silent Hill borrowed from Carl Jung?
Okay. Well, I think the most sort of the one that really turned me on to wanting to analyze Silent Hill a lot more deeply was this concept of synchronicity. It's a concept that I tend to be quite enamored with to this day, even ever after I first discovered it. Carl Jung believed that there was this inherent link between the physical world and the mental world.
Mm,
And that link was that the mental was in part material, was in part physical, and the physical was in part mental. And this sort of draws upon a lot of Eastern religious ideas, particularly in Buddhism and Hinduism. Um, so, and like one of my favorite quotes that he ever said was one that he had at the end of his textbook called Ion. He said that I, I'm paraphrasing, but He says that the material world has to be in part psyche, because how else could matter produce psyche? And the psyche has to be in part material, because how else could psyche move matter, right? So that's sort of one of the fundamental aspects of what synchronicity is. Um, Now, the other aspect of synchronicity is sort of how, well, the first aspect was sort of a characteristic, but the
Mm.
second aspect, I'll sort of give you an example of how synchronicity works. Have you ever um, had a dream and then some point in reality you felt like you seen what you're looking at in a dream? Sort of like deja vu.
Yeah.
That's sort of what synchronicity is. And I'll give you a famous example, one that I actually gave in one of my Silent Hill videos of synchronicity happening
Mm.
to Carl Jung and one of his patients. Jung was talking to one of his patients that was in a deep neurosis that she couldn't get out of. And so they were doing dream analysis to try and help her out of it. The patient tells Jung about this dream that she had of a golden scarab. Somebody giving her a piece of jewelry that looks like a golden scarab. And then during that very same session, um, there is this tapping at Carl Jung's cabinet door. He goes over to see what it is, and he sees it's a bug. He catches it, sees what it is, walks over to his patient, and says, "Well, here, I found your golden scarab." And it was a golden scarab. Now, keep in mind that golden scarabs, they're very, let's say, rare to show up in an Austrian climate, let's say.
Mm.
So that's an example of something from one person's mind possibly showing up in physical reality. And so you see that, again, that same principle applied in games like Silent Hill, where you see the products of one's mind take physical form. And then I'll go beyond that. You know how we were just talking about Alan Wake and how
Yeah.
that game does the same thing. Well, there's another game that shares the same universe as Alan Wake. It's a game called Control. It's a game that came out, I think, a couple of years ago, made by the same developers. And in the game Control, you it sort of takes place inside this giant facility that deals with the paranormal. And there's one uh, sort of part of the facility you can go into called the Synchronicity Lab. And in several different documents in the game, you see references to Jung's theories, including synchronicity. And again, it deals with that idea that the products of one's mind can come to life.
Mm.
You see that in Death Stranding. Uh, see that in Final Fantasy X. It's a very famous idea, and it makes you think just what there is about the nature of reality that you don't understand, because there seems to be so much truth to it, and everybody seems to have experienced synchronicity in one way or another, even if they don't believe in it. And I think it's that theory that drove a lot of people to my analysis of Silent Hill in the first place.
Yep.
So that's one example. Yeah.
Mm. Right. The concept of synchronicity, it's really something, as you mentioned a while ago, that it does happen even if you don't accept it, even if you don't realize it. You just there's sometimes that you consider deja vu, and that's I think that's also synchronicity based on what you've mentioned.
Yeah, it is.
Mm. And uh, could ask a lot more questions in this one. Actually, I'm a bit um nervous because again, guys, I'm a big fan of Max. If you could see.
But would it help you if I said a whole bunch of really immature things just to make you feel better about
No,
yourself?
no, that's fine, man. I'm
Okay.
following, also watch your live streams with Reinstall Paul and with Logo Steve as well. You
Oh,
guys
cool.
could be pretty goofy at times, but yeah. Okay, so I have a friend here, my friend Migo Delphine asked, I heard somewhere that Silent Hill 2 was influenced or inspired by. Yeah, it is, right? I
It
mean,
is.
it is one of the most famous reference, or at least inspiration to Silent Hill 2. Also, I think Max, you created or made a video regarding Jacob's Ladder. Am I correct?
Yes, I did.
So you could check it out. I'm going to plug Max's page in a few.
Yeah,
Since
if
we
you
do,
if you're curious about the links between Silent Hill and Jacob's Ladder, you could watch. Just go to YouTube and type in Max Derrat Jacob's Ladder, and I think the first video that'll pop up will be that video. It's a The thumbnail is a picture of um, the poster for Jacob's Ladder, James's face from Silent Hill 2, and then in the center is the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And
just
then
give
click
them
on
a,
that. Yeah.
yeah, give them a bit more access. So just search in Silent Hill mythology and also Max's name. You'll see a lot of great stuff there. And
There you go. There it is, right there, right
yeah,
on your screen.
it's really funny because I just watched this recently, the Dead by Daylight,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure why they included Silent Hill in that game. For some
Why not?
reason, it doesn't. Well, eventually, I know that they'll be adapting a lot of pop culture horror stuff there, but when I see them adapting Silent Hill, it's like, hmm, are they going to butcher this up again? It's
Well,
always in my mind, yeah.
I gotta say, man, like as a Silent Hill fan, the stuff that that game did was very, very respectful, and there's a lot of stuff that's really, really cool that you can find
Mm,
with the stuff they did in that game. Like the Midwich Elementary School. I was
mm,
actually playing on that map the other day when I was playing Dead by Daylight with my girlfriend, and happened to go into one of the bathrooms, and I heard Alessa crying in one of the bathroom stalls, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe they put this much detail into this. It's like these guys seem to care more about Silent Hill than effing Konami does,
mm.
you know.
Yeah.
Which I don't think
Um.
anybody should dispute, and if you do, I think you and I have to have words.
Yeah. I would agree that someone else would actually do a better thing with Silent Hill. Pay better respect to Silent Hill. Konami is not going to do that. For some reason, they already ended that ship a
Right.
long time ago when Team Silent left. And let's go ahead and at least ship something else. It's still Silent Hill related, but I don't think it's related to the game. But I'm also a big fan of Siren,
Mm,
and I played one. Didn't finish it because it's somehow very hard to play,
yeah.
and also same with two.
It's
Um,
I mean, like, it's sort of a meme to say, but it's true. Siren is the Dark Souls of survival horror
it
games.
is. It's very hard for some reason. I just went through around 30 minutes playing one, and I immediately dropped it and played Metal Gear Solid 3.
Mhm.
That's how hard it was, and I've already played other hard games such as Ninja Gaiden and other stuff like that level, even Tenchu. When I played this one, it's like, why can't I actually understand the mechanics of one? I'm not sure why, but
It's very janky, and I think it's sort of purposefully janky in the same way
mm,
that Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 are, but it wasn't finely tuned. I think that's the problem. And as a result, there'll be some people that are able to adapt to it and want to continue with it. And then other people will just want to put it down. And I totally understand why. I think even the developers understood why, because that's why they made Siren Blood Curse, right? Which
yes,
is a
Silent Blood Curse is pretty much easier to play.
yeah, and I
Mm,
think they made that for as sort of an apology for the first game, even though the first game, as I pointed out in the video that I put out recently, definitely
mm.
does have its merit.
Yeah, and also the story itself is very interesting.
Hmm.
Have you watched the movie Siren?
No, I
Because
never did.
then I won't recommend it, but they tried
Oh,
putting that shit in a movie version, and it's worse than you would imagine it to be.
that's
It's
too bad.
worse. It's like a B-roll B-side movie, and I just wish if they created one, it should be at least into the veins of what Siren really was. I mean, they have the old Shibito thing, but it ended there. The concept of Siren ended there. And also one thing, I'm not sure if you could provide me an answer, or at least in your perspective,
Okay.
regarding the time shifts in that game.
Mhm.
Do you think it was more detrimental when you play it? Because when you play us gamers were kind of used to having that linear progress. So when you're playing a game, when you're playing Siren, it's totally different because they have some sort of time zones and everything.
Mm.
Do you think it was a detriment to the game, or is it something very unique, very good concept?
It's hard to speak objectively on this
Mm,
issue. For myself, I thought it was brilliant, but I tend to appreciate inventive ways of approaching narratives. I mean, obviously, that's sort of what
that's
I
what you do.
primarily
Yeah,
discuss on my
yeah.
channel, right? And I
Mm,
think on the whole, it was a worthwhile risk. But for the average person that comes to that game, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily play survival horror games to be challenged in the same way that they are when they play games like Dark Souls. They just come there to have maybe a good story and be scared.
mm.
And when you have the narrative jumping all over the place, people aren't necessarily going to pick up on it and be as enthused with it. But I was. I thought it was very, very creative. And I think that they pulled it off. And I think other people might hold that opinion as well.
Yeah, I would agree that they pulled it off quite beautifully, especially in Blood Curse. It was a more refined version of what is really happening there, and now I just want to play Blood Curse for some reason. Talking about it because it is a good game. I played some of it. I didn't play everything because due to technology's sake, I don't have PS3 or PS4, but I'm looking forward to playing Blood Curse sometime in the future. And yeah, so I think that pretty much is it for me for as far as questions concerned about Silent Hill. Okay, so here's a fan question for you.
Okay.
If you were to take over the whole project or production of Silent Hill, how
Yes.
would you envision the next game would be? Picking up from, let's say, let's erase the other games that were made from the West and concentrate the last game, Silent Hill 4 or 3. How would
Mhm.
you continue the franchise?
That's a very good question. Hmm. I think somebody asked you that question the other day. I'm just trying to remember what I said.
Okay, while you're trying to remember your answer in that one, Migo's asking a bit off topic, but I'd like to hear Max's opinions on upcoming Matrix movie.
What could it be
Maybe
about? Okay, well, while I have the answer to, how I would do
later. Okay.
Silent Hill sort of bubbling in my brain, I'll answer the Matrix thing. I'm very excited about it. I think that based on what has happened in Matrix 2 and 3 by paying attention to it and doing videos on both those movies, I have a general idea of where they're going to go. I think the answer sort of lies in the movie's subtitle, Resurrections. I think that because of how special Neo was as the one in the sequels and what he managed to do in those movies, it's worthwhile to sort of try and bring his body back to life in the same way that his mind was brought back to life in the first movie. Except in Matrix 4, they're going to try and find a way to link his mind up with his dead body. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I think it would work well alongside all the Christ symbolism that we got throughout those movies. And if they're able to bring him back to life, it would be of use to the machines because, being able to study him as an anomaly might be able to help them create better systems of control for the humans. And if the humans get a hold of him, then that gives them a greater chance against the machines because the guy can reach out his hand and blow up a whole bunch of them as you see in the Matrix Revolutions. um, that's where I think I could be wrong, but we'll see in a couple weeks. And as for how I would handle a Silent Hill remake, I
Mm.
would say do it first person, do it sort of like Resident Evil 7, and but make it very much survival. Don't give the player as many resources to help them survive. Maybe incentivize running away from them rather than trying to get into direct combat with them, sort of like how you did in the original Silent Hill games. And then I would suggest maybe just going back to basics. Either go back and tell a story with the order, or just tell a personal story like you did with James.
Mhm.
I think it would probably be a better idea to go with the latter idea because it's simpler and is a lot more
Mhm.
mysterious. Uh, and most importantly, try to keep all your surroundings in the dark, because what made Silent Hill so scary is that pretty much all the time you were in the dark, your light
Yep.
barely illuminated anything, and then things would just come out of the dark. You wouldn't be able to understand what the hell you were looking
Mhm.
at, but you knew it was scary. That's how I would handle it. Uh, and there are a couple of, if you want to see how good something like this could look, there, I can't remember who did it, but somebody did a first person remake of the first part of Silent Hill 1 where you're chasing Cheryl down that little corridor, and it's awesome. If I were if I were to do Silent Hill, I would definitely want it to look like it did in that demo, but I
Mhm.
can't recall who did it off the top of my head. Maybe if you look it up on YouTube, you can find it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I'll
yeah.
try to look for that one. Just to answer that question also myself, I think I'll be on the opposite side. I will try to make it as close as Silent Hill 1, especially the camera angles and everything. Just
Mm,
because I really enjoyed how they made the camera angles in 1. It's very unsettling, as they say. Also, I would agree, making a story either personal or something revolving around the order, because they haven't really they haven't really dived through the order that much, and I'm not sure if it was actually done properly in Homecoming.
mm. No, it wasn't.
It
That's
wasn't. And it hasn't done properly in Homecoming. We only had the taste of it in Silent Hill 1 and also in 3. And maybe on my end, I'll concentrate on that one. And probably um, I could also throw in a side story on why Henry actually died, the reason why he died.
mm.
And there's no definite explanation, as far as I could remember, on why he died in the third installment, unless you remember something different.
No, I can't recall.
Yeah, there was no indication on why he died. He just sat in front of the TV dead for some reason. I would make that a side story and probably
DLC?
yeah, DLC. And I'm not sure who the main character is because I don't want to see Cheryl again.
Right.
And for some reason, I like her as a character, but it needs to be someone fresh,
Yeah.
because we have someone like James already there. As much as I like James's character, that's already done with, and it's very hard to replicate that same formula because
Hmm.
Silent Hill 2 was really good. And yeah, it's such an unfortunate thing that Silent Hill PT never came to be. Actually, it came to be, but it was just a playable demo.
Right. So I think he means the
Yeah,
game that
the
I was
entire game.
teasing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and
Rest in
could have been.
peace, man. Man, oh God. Did you watch the Game Awards last night?
I didn't finish it. I
Okay.
just seen some of the snippets. Is there anything
Yeah,
interesting there?
Guillermo del Toro he was brought on to introduce the award for art direction.
Uh huh.
And during that, he said, "You know what? One game had great art direction,
PT.
Silent Hill."
PT.
Yeah, and then just hearing him say that, it felt like a
Crush,
hole was
soul
shot through
crushing.
my heart. Yeah, but thankfully, the original creator of Silent Hill 1, Kichiro Toyama,
Mm.
he is partnering with the original composer for Silent Hill, Akira
Akira
Yamaoka,
Toriyama. Yeah.
to make a new game called Slitterhead, which was announced at the Game Awards last night. Did you know
Do
about
you
that?
think it's going? No, I didn't. Do
Yeah.
you think it's going to be at least in the vein of Silent Hill, or it will be totally different? Or is there
It's
any concept yet?
well, actually, you see sort of the concept that they're going for. It's not going to be like a serious, dreary tone. It seems more like really, really cool looking monsters, like we got with
Uh-huh.
Silent Hill, but more of a over the top
Siren
sort of thing.
would be like Siren? Oh no.
No, not like I'm trying to think of a good horror game to compare it to. Uh, maybe something along the vein of. Do you see the trailers for Ghostwire? No, maybe not Ghostwire Tokyo. Damn, I can't think of a good comparison. If you
Is it
watch the trailer,
more
you'll see what I
Japanese like?
mean. Yeah, it's not psychological horror. I guess is what I'm trying to say. It seems more like just
I'll look it up.
playing it for fun.
I'll look it up. I'll definitely look it up. And are you also a fan of Resident Evil?
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen any videos so far, as far as I can remember.
Well, I I love Resident Evil, but I don't tend to see much in those games in regards to their story. As fun as the story is, that would warrant sort of a Max Derrat type video because usually when I cover games,
Yeah,
it's
I guess.
more about really in depth narratives. And yeah, I love the games though, love them.
Yeah, I also love the game, but you're right. There's nothing that much to make a research about when it comes to Resident Evil.
Hmm. I
And
could do a video on the meme of global saturation and
oh
just
yeah,
people
totally worth it.
right. But aside from that, I can't think of anything.
What do you think about Wesker as a villain?
Well, he's one of the most iconic villains in the history of gaming,
Mm,
right? I'd say he's a little bit hammy as a villain. He's a little bit more stereotypical, but I think that's part of his charm, and I think that's part of why people love him so much. And
mm.
plus, the twist of him being the bad guy at the end of Resident Evil One. That's one of the all-time great twists, right?
Yep.
So I think those factors sort of render him as beloved in our hearts by default. You know,
Mm, yeah. Still, I think we still have about 15 minutes left. I think. Um, yeah. Another game question, man. What do you think about Fear? First encounter
oh,
assault recon.
dude, I love the first Fear. I when I first got a PC, one of the first games I downloaded because I never owned my own copy of Fear
Mm,
was
it's a
Fear on
long time
Steam.
ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I used to rent that game from Blockbuster all the time when that was still around. Just because the gameplay in that game was so much fun, and somehow they managed to take a great action game, a great shooter, and marry it with a lot of genuinely great horror. And
I
the
agree.
two things that always work is shrouding everything in dark and infusing it with just creepy ass little girls. It's The Shining taught us anything. That's always a recipe for horror, and
Disaster.
well,
Yeah.
beautiful disaster.
Mm,
I did play Fear 2 and Fear 3 once. I do remember Fear 2. I remember liking it, and then I remember being disappointed with Fear 3. But Fear 1, I think, is one of the all-time great horror games, and I think it still holds up.
mm,
Uh, just if you play it on PC, you will have to do some modding to try and get it to work. But yeah, I highly recommend it. I did go back and play it because I wanted to see if I could do a video on it. And aside from maybe doing something like I did with Siren, where I'm just like, oh, hey, guys, remember this game? There's not really much I can do in regards to the story. It's just sort of like people dealing with the paranormal and, people trying to play God, and that always goes wrong. Right.
mm.
Mm.
And another shooter game that it also has some sort of a narrative is Spec Ops: The Line.
Mm.
There's also very interesting concept that they have there. In first playthrough, you could come up to it or just come up with a conclusion like it's just your traditional shoot 'em up, but once you
So
get to
much more
see
than
the
that.
story, yeah, once you get to see the stories and also the endings, it's really psychological the way they play with the character psyche and also yourself, the decisions that you make also in the endings. It's very good. And here's another question from Migo. Yeah, random thought. What do you think about this one, Max? I think he would.
Random thought. I think Jordan Peterson would enjoy Silent
You
Hill
enjoy
1 and
Silent
2.
Hill
Oh
1?
God, absolutely. uh, he has spoken about his love for fiction that deals with archetypes and their influence
Mm,
on the mind. Um, and he's spoken. I remember listening to one of his lectures. He said that one of the greatest. I think he said that the greatest book that was ever written was Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. And guess what game? Guess what book directly influenced Silent Hill 2? It's Crime and Punishment. And if you read that book, you understand why. I don't want to spoil it because even though like Crime and Punishment is like 200 years old, it's it's one of the best books I've ever written. I
mm,
I read that book, and when the main inciting event happens, which is like within the first 100 pages, I'm how some people watch horror movies and they're sort of on the edge of their seat because they know something really terrifying is about to
yep.
come. That's what it was like reading Crime and Punishment. And I think because Team Silent carried over some of the magic from that novel into the game, that's part of the reason why Silent Hill 2 is so scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
have to
yeah, Jordan
research that
Peterson would
again.
absolutely love it. Yeah.
What's the name of the book again? Crime and Punishment.
Crime and Punishment. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to look it up. Malcolm Limgan, your comments on
Two can
Resident
get them.
Evil was sort of a survival horror, in the sense that you manage limited resources and slowly you just became Dead Rising. I would
Mm,
agree. Some
uh,
part I would agree, but not
I, I, I,
entirely.
I agree with the general sentiment of your statement, but I
Yes.
wouldn't say it's as over the top as Dead Rising was. Maybe
No.
Resident Evil 6, but yeah, 7 and 8, I would say was still more geared towards the survival horror aspect. Although if you play on like normal or easy, it's way too easy.
Yeah, it is very easy,
Yeah.
and it's just one of those games that you just play just for fun. Dead Rising is, as
Yeah.
compared to, let's say, Resident Evil or Silent Hill, that you have to go through the story and also analyze, especially in Silent Hill. Um, I think, yeah, we've reached an hour, and I would like to be respectful of Max's time just
Yeah.
early there, and I would like to thank you for also being here and accepting my invitation. We could talk about this the whole day.
Oh,
Actually,
absolutely.
I have
Yeah.
questions, so maybe sometime in the future I get to invite you again. But if you guys, if you do like to search or at least watch Max's videos, all of them are in YouTube. Just another question: why stay yellow?
um, okay, so okay, I'll do this really quick. So one of my favorite YouTubers, he's a guy named Vash12349, and he at one point a few years ago he would be playing because he's a Let's Player YouTuber. He just plays games, and
Mm,
he would just say "Stay black" to a whole bunch of characters. Doesn't matter
okay.
what their skin tone was. He would just say it. Uh, and I just thought that was funny. And I thought, well, my character is yellow, and I could probably come up with a catchphrase to sort of, have Max Derrat fans signal to each other. And I thought it'd be funny if I chose "Stay Yellow," and then people ask me, okay, so what does "Stay Yellow" mean? And like, well, it's sort of what "Zigga Zigga" meant to the Spice Girls. It means basically whatever you want. I tend to think it just means "Stay awesome." So,
Yeah. So I thought it was in relation of you being a what do you call this, a Simpsons fan, because I
well,
think it's evident with the color of Simpson characters and also your avatar just to be
Well,
yellow.
yes, that is the other part of it. Yeah, I
Mm,
just that's sort of the self-evident part. Well,
yeah.
do you want me to tell you quickly
Yeah,
how I
sure.
got the avatar?
If you have the time, yeah,
Yeah, so
definitely.
it's very simple. Back when the Simpsons movie came out back in 2007, as a form of promotion for the movie, 20th Century Fox released a website called Simpsonize Me. And if you go to that website, you upload a picture of your face to the website, it'll pop out a Simpsonized version of you. And
Oh,
so
okay.
the avatar that I used was the picture that came out of that website. And back when I decided to start doing videos, I didn't really want to put my face out on screen. So I just thought, maybe I should use a cartoon avatar. Well, I have this, so might as well go with that. And then this sort of became a joke. Started by my viewers. I can't remember who came up with it originally, but they started saying that I should consider myself as Simpsons kin, and
Oh yeah,
yeah, and so yeah, there's that.
there's that.
Mhm.
Okay, so we have a last question here, and we're going to close it with this one. Who did introduce you to Silent Hill?
uh, Inadvertently, it was my dad's friend AJ. Um, my hi- AJ, he was getting rid of a whole bunch of his games. I don't know why. Maybe got too addicted to them or something. I never really understood why, but uh, my dad, he gave them all to my dad, and my dad played a whole bunch of them. And then when I was supposed to be playing Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, I decided to go through all the other games that were on the shelf, games that I really shouldn't have been playing, and came across Silent Hill. And yeah, played that game when I was 6. Explains a lot about how I turned out, don't you think?
Yeah, because I'm actually very fascinated with you and the other YouTubers to be able to dissect an entire game, entire franchise, and also do the production that you do in YouTube. It's very top notch, and a lot of people out here enjoy your content, man.
Oh,
And especially here in Manila, I know a handful of people who know you, and they're kind of envious because I got you here. And I just told them, "Oh, just try talking to Max." It's simple as that. But if does say no, you can't take it personally because Max and also other people that you like to invite, they might be doing something else or something important. But the best way you for the people watching, the best way you'll be able to get acquainted with what Max does is to visit his page in YouTube and also I think Twitch as well. Do you have any regular shows in Twitch as of the moment? Not yet.
I'm trying to do regular streams on Saturday. I wasn't
Mhm.
able to do one last week just because I was so busy, but I'm gonna try. Oh, I should probably do an announcement. I'm thinking of probably
Yeah.
playing Dark Souls on stream tomorrow, just
Oh
for
my
fun.
god.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll probably tune in that one. He's also a mental health advocate as well,
Mhm.
and you also do call-ins, or not that, not anymore.
Um, we haven't been doing that in the last couple months. We
Mm.
did try to do it as a monthly thing, but I'm trying to see ways that I could sort of take the mental health content to the next level in the new year. And you guys will see that starting in January.
All right, nice. And I'm just going to leave you in front right now, Max. Is there anything else you'd like to say to your fans in Manila, or any words of encouragement to people right now, especially in these tough times?
Stay away from the punch bowl. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would just say no. In all seriousness, just take stock of the people that you really care about in your life. Try to message them if you haven't recently. Hold them tight. Let them know that they're loved and that you support them. And that way, they'll support you. That's what I found to be the most important in the last couple of years, especially with everything going on in the world, and especially with the way the future's looking. Yeah, and I think that if you do that, you'll be able to weather anything.
Okay. All right. I think that's pretty much it for today. And again, visit Max's page, Migo. I beg of you, visit his page. He's got a lot of movie breakdowns there, including Heart of Darkness, which I also watched. That this is very informative. I'm going to rewatch it sometime soon again. And for my end, I do have a stream next week. Tomorrow, I have a Christmas stream with a couple of DJs, former DJs, and a week from now, I will be holding a panel discussing the recent Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, if it actually held up to its title, being a very what do you call this, faithful adaptation of what Resident Evil is. I've got some hot takes on that one. Max, have you watched that as well? Not yet.
No, man, I've heard it wasn't very good,
It wasn't good. To
regrettably.
be honest with you,
Go
I
watch
think
Arcane. That's a great video game adaptation.
uh, you're not the first person to actually recommend that one. So I think that's it for tonight, guys. And again, thank you, Max, for being here. For the people, 10 people here a while ago. Thank you so much for the people who are going to watch this video. Please do share your love to Max. The links in the description for his pages, all of the his socials, including, I'm not sure if you're active in Facebook, but the link is also included there, and also Twitter. And that's it for us. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend and be awesome. And Max would say, stay
Stay yellow.
yellow.